Me and my friends were looking at Walkie Wake recently again, and in case you haven't seen this card, which I wouldn't blame you, it is an ancient Pokemon that has the ability to shred through any of the Pokemon's abilities or effects on them. And in case you don't know what shred is, this is like the stuff that you'd see in like Cornerstone Ogerpon or like Giratina V. These types of effects allow you to get past like anything in the game, from like Safeguard to Noivern to Milotic to, you know, anything really. And then you also get the bonus of, instead of your attack being pretty weak, you have the secondary effect that allows you to do 240 damage with a Catharsis Roar. I really wanted Walkie Wake to work when it first came out. It was one of the decks that I was actually putting a lot of time into trying to play, but it never really panned out. But I think it's time that we revisit the deck because it has a lot more tools available to it. For example, the poison package overall has gotten a lot stronger. We've always had Brute Bonnet at the same time that we've had Walkie Wake, but we never had Pecharunt, and Pecharunt gives you a really good early game play. And we've also found the Oranguru V shell that works alongside Latias. So you use Oranguru V to grab for a Seal Stone in an Ancient Booster Capsule, which you can then use to grab Precious Trolley and set everything up. You can even get a bigger field size with the Area 0 Underdepths. Binding Mochi to increase the Walkie Wake's damage up to 280 before any of the poison damage. And just a bunch of other cool things in here. In order to activate the Area 0, we're using Teal Mask Ogerpon, which is probably the best option here because it'll, one, give us additional card draw, and two, because ramping energy onto the Walkie Wake is troublesome, we can use the energy switches to help compensate for that. So between, you know, the Petra early game and the energy switches with the Teal Mask, I think the deck has quite a few legs to stand on. And if the deck is going to continue to pivot over towards wall decks, this is a really good time against wall decks and has the opportunity to take a lot of cheap knockouts against setup decks such as like Dragapult or Charizard. So if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment down below, and subscribe. And also, alrighty, and getting started with the video. Now, you might be overwhelmed by seeing so many games at once, but I just kept donking people with Pecharunt in these games. Like, I got way more games of me just winning with the Pecharunt than I did actually playing the deck. And I probably played more games of Pecharunt donking than I actually was playing the deck. Not even, like, winning games, but, like, actually just legit matches. No, I just FTK'd my opponent so often. Anyways, to guide to your eyes a little bit, and the bottom right, we kind of got the best start with the Oranguru, who is able to just fetch out the Ancient Booster Capsule and the Forest Seal Stone, and is able to grab Precious Trolley and just grab the Pecharunt and the Brute Bonnet, as well as the Latias, and I'm able to take an easy donk over there. While on the left side over here, we got kind of everything in our hand that we needed already, with the Nest Ball and the Ultra Ball, allowing us to also grab a Brute Bonnet and a Pecharunt, so we can jet energy up there. On the bottom left hand side of the screen, you're going to see me use Teal Dance and naturally draw it into the Hisuian Heavy Ball, which was actually super crucial here because I was not actually intending to go for the donk, seeing my Pecharunt was prized, and then I got lucky and got it anyways. And then top right of the screen, while it is not a complete donk, my opponent is going to go ahead and concede after gaining 4 full board state set up and setting myself up for the next turn pretty handily. So yeah, you know, a lot of Pecharunt donking, a lot of people just completely unprepared. And if you thought it was fucking over, no, I was not kidding when I got a lot of Pecharunt donk games. There is still a couple more that we gotta get through here. So we got, you know, the game on the top, which I think is amusing in a way. I do end up starting the Teal Dance, mostly because if I have to retreat using energy, the Teal Dance can attach to itself and give me a free retreat in that sense. And then I go ahead and just Teal Dance and immediately get the Brute Bonnet, which solves all my problems, because then I could just go ahead and grab the Pecharunt and, you know, retreat, poison, and win the game. Now, the bottom, while I didn't go first, my opponent didn't do anything, so I'm just going to go ahead and get the full setup here with the Arven and the Brute Bonnet. I don't even have to grab anything else, because I could just simply use the Ancient Booster Capsule and Poison, and then the Sneasler to get the last bit of damage that I need, not even need to send out the Pecharunt. Now, if you thought it was fucking over, now we have another game of Pecharunt bullying the shit out of people, but you know, it's technically all not Pecharunt's fault this time. My opponent does start with the Mimikyu, which essentially tells me it's like, well, I've got to find another way around this anyways, so it is what it is. They do Pokégear for a lady, and I do lose my mind a little bit over what could possibly be happening, but yeah. But we kind of have the optimal start here, Oranguru the active, as well as the Area 0, and the Teal lands, because now this is going to give me 2 more Pokemon off my Precious Trolley, whereas before you have to like have a Terra Pokemon play to get the full maximum value of your Precious Trolley, and you know, we just simply don't. I am looking to see like what we got here. I do think I ended up making a misplay in this, like a double misplay, because I have the energy switch in my hand, and so before I like send my thing off, I'm supposed to move it. And my original play was to move it to the Walkie Wake, but I, for some reason, just move it to another Ogerpon. I'm not quite sure how that one happened in my head, but I'm looking as like, oh, I kind of fucked up. And I also believe this is before I put Radiant Sneasler in the deck, because I didn't realize like how many like donks I was gonna get. So I just said, hey, fuck it, what if I just keep thinning my deck out, and I'll have this this ability to draw even more cards off the Squawkabilly, which is why I ended up going for the Ultra Ball discarding the Blood Moon. Like I said, I don't think I got value out of it in any of my matches, so it's whatever. And I'm just going to continue to trim as much as humanly possible. Even, like, if I get this energy switch back, it'd be really funny. You know, I could have had the donk already by simply just energy switching onto the Pecharunt, but it is what it is. And then we, you know, last Teal dance, get the last energy switch and win the game. I don't even have to use the Brute Bonnet ability. I can just attack and do 10 damage, and then the attack will poison it. So, you know, good job, Pecharunt. You fucking did it. That would be a case for leaving 1 dark energy in the deck if you really want to use the Pecharunt attack. And it's also like not the worst case scenario in the world, because having the energy switches available to immediately attack that way is maybe nice. I don't think the Monkey Dory is worth it though. Like, I can't think of a situation where it's like, oh yeah, Monkey Dory, I'm super happy to see that. And I feel like most of the cases, because I'm poisoning down my own Pokemon, and the attackers are mostly trying to use Binding Mochi, so, you know, my Walkie Wake is typically game weakened by poison, and then also not able to use the Ancient Booster Energy Capsule, then it just seemed kind of worthless. So, I don't think the Monkey Dory is that great, but, like, I used the Dark Energy one time, that was kind of neat. We do, thankfully, end up getting quite a bit going on here with this hand. Unfortunately, no pure donk, as Petra is going to go ahead and take another soul from this video. I question whether or not I'm supposed to put down the Radiant Sneasler, but I think in my head it's like, well, if I put it down now, it does threaten the Dreepy if they want to come in, but doesn't threaten Dracloak. And I think them having a Dracloak is, you know, kind of likely, just off the top of my head. And Dracloak would survive the hit, obviously, so I don't really care too much about putting the Sneasler down, even if it could pop a Dreepy. And if that is like the case, like, I just pull it out later, possibly. I put it is going to go ahead and set in the Itchy Paw in here and try to stall me out a little bit, but also my hit is really not that bad. I have either option for a Research or a Sada, alongside a Ogerpon in my hand already. And I'm also setting on the Sada as well. So I'm like, I'll just use the Sada this turn and use the Energy Switch next turn. I do draw the double Binding Mochi, which is kind of funny. It does mean that like my Arven, my Oranguru can possibly grab less next game, but I actually think I discarded the Oranguru this game. I think I just like felt the need to like not commit to it. It's nice to have the Force Heal sub target pull anyways, but I don't think there's a single game where I didn't use the grab Precious Trolley. Actually, I think there's like a singular game where I used it to grab like Earthen Vessel instead, but it is mostly just the Precious Trolley bot that also grabs the Ancient Booster for your Brute Bonnet. So, you know, losing out on value Oranguru isn't like the worst. And it's mostly like really good for deck thinning since we run 3 copies of our extra energies. And now, you know, my opponent's not in a great board state. Sure, they can evolve a bunch of their mods up, but they're still going to be kind of limited on their draws until they come up with a further game plan. And Petra is just going to find a way to take another life here. As I'm going to go ahead and also bump their stadium, possibly, so I could get even more value. I'm also going to go ahead and just pull this this Dreepy up, even though I can't kill it, which is honestly just a mistake on my end. I thought like I was going to be able to pull out the Radiant Sneasler this turn, but I must have messed something up in my head, alas. But putting the damage onto the Dragapult that would get the Sparkling Crystal is really good for me, especially because I'm sitting on a Walkie Wake that is perfectly ready to attack. So that's where we're on that right now. And then if this also does just knock out the Dreepy, then I'm just going to go ahead and get an extra kill, and I will be perfectly satisfied with that too. it also requires, you know, my opponent to have rare candy or to use a Dracloak, which I'm not quite sure if they run for Dracloak off the top of my head. They might, but we just end up taking out the Dreamy. It's like, okay. I also hit the Pokégear here. It's like, how funny would it be if I like Pokégeared into a Lisia's? So I go ahead and just grab the Sneasler now because I don't really see myself needing any other Pokemon. Maybe another Teal Mask would have been okay, but other than that, it's like whatever. And then I do end up pulling the Lisia's Appeal, so I could go ahead and knock this out without even putting poison damage on myself. And that's actually kind of relevant because if I had taken a poison tick for 2 turns, then I would have been knocked out in return by an opposing Dragapult. So this is really good for me. I'm also deciding like whether or not to toss the Sneasler or the Pecharunt or whatever. The Squawk and the Pecharunt were pretty easy because even if my opponent like knocked me out, got value on it, the Pecharunt was so low that it was always going to be a free prize for them. And I decided to keep the Sneasler because it might help me reach some thresholds later, since I am doing, you know, a significant enough damage with the Walking Wake. I figured having the extra chip would not be awful, especially if I have to attack for a minimal amount somewhere along the line. But yeah, you know, good game. I see my opponent has a Sylveon, and I'm like, oh, that could possibly be content, but you know, we might not see it this game. But you know, the really nice part about Walking Wake currently is that it can go through all sorts of effects. There's no way to, you know, get past it. Walking Wake is always going to do its game plan, and the only thing that could stop it is if there was a Pokemon that said that Pokemon cannot attack next turn. I can't think of a good example off the top of my head, but I know there's been attacks in the past. It's like if your opponent is a basic Pokemon, they cannot attack during the next turn. But most of the effects that we have right now that people are running are self-applying effects, which is why Walking Wake is able to get passive states with its shred ability, which is, like, you know, really nice, at least in this day and age. It's not always going to be super relevant, which is why I think holds it back. And, you know, besides the energy count being kind of awkward for it, but, you know, it's still really nice to have the ability to just say, hey, fuck you. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. We're going to go ahead and, you know, get quite a bit of hefty value out of our Squawkabilly here, drawing us some even more setup cards. We even got the Energy Switch onto the Walking Wake, which will allow us to further prep it for, you know, more damage. And I believe we're just going to pass the turn here. Unfortunately, there's not, like, a whole lot I can do to an EX without drawing a Sada or some other, like, hefty setup. And then my opponent drops the honey on me, and I'm like, excuse me? There's definitely some weird decks going on live, and there's also a few decks like missing from the metagame currently. So there's like not a lot of our Chaladon or Gardevoir on the ladder because both those decks are currently kind of non-functional in their live's current state, which upsets me a lot. It was one of the reasons why I didn't upload for a few days, or at least didn't do TG Live content for a few days, because I wanted to do a video where I was going to grind all the way to Arceus without playing any item cards. And for me to do that, I was going to need decks. I was going to need cards like Archaladon and Palkia to get me there. But seeing as that all those cards are currently broken, I was like, oh, I have to hold off the challenge, which means I will have to do it next month. Alas, alas. I do a funny thing here, put the Binding Mochi onto the Squawkabilly here to possibly do more damage. And this is motivate to get the energies of the Walking Wake doesn't seem too bad in my head. Because I'm like, well, I can probably take down most of the EVs if I just get my Wake charged up. And that's sort of my game plan here. Especially chipping it down because I have the Ancient Booster Capsule on my Walking Wake already. Which might have been a misplay, but in my head I was thinking, it can help me get past like Leafeon if Leafeon is technically a threat. Anyways, we're just going to go ahead and knock out the Umbreon, but not before Umbreon uses this amazing powerful attack Onyx to take a singular prize card after using Cook and Sweet Honey against me. Anyways, he should get a better list because my Umbreon deck is better. You can check that out in my videos section on my channel somewhere. Woo. But yeah, you know, Wake does a lot of damage, which is at least the nice part. And like I said, nothing walls it. I do think it's a little upsetting because I really liked Wake. I really thought Wake had some potential. I tried really hard to make it work. At the very beginning when it came out, I bought all the pieces for it. I was super hyped about it, but it just like never like drew me into like a reasonable place where I'm like, yeah, I could definitely take this to the locals and run it. I was not very confident in it, especially when Temporal Force is releasing and we're gaining rotation. There was a lot of decks I was trying out. Like I was playing the Methane Dialga deck. I was playing like quite a few things at that time, so it was just rough. I do typically grab the water energies out so I can discard them immediately. They're kind of mostly just Sada targets in my head, but it might be relevant to keep like one water energy around in the deck. That way you can manually attach it. I think the problem is a little bit resolved if you start taking out the dark energies. But the majority of the games I was playing, I had the the dark energies in the deck, unfortunately, and they just didn't do much besides be like fodder and sometimes occasional card draw for Sada. So it definitely felt bad, but you know, it's fine. You need extra energies anyways, and you only need one water for the Sada. But it could have definitely been like a grass energy or extra water energy just to improve my consistency a little bit, less and less. I am unfortunately just a little bit off from being able to get the attack, but we actually have the Energy Switch, my bad, to get the donk here. So turn away with Lucky Wake. It is difficult, but you can do it. And that was one of the few cases where I actually used the Oranguru's Forest Sealstone in order to pull something that wasn't the Precious Trolley. But I kind of had so much card draw going for me at the beginning anyways that I really just did not need it. And now I'm trying to remember what this last game was. I think it was against a Regidrago. But yeah. You know, I think the deck is cool. I also want to apologize for not uploading TCG content for the past few days, since we're on the last game of the video. Mostly because on Thursday, I was out, like, since 5 in the morning, and I didn't get home until 11 p.m., attending locals, going to work, and having to run 2 different shifts at work today, with a gap in between. So that was really rough, but... It's fine. And I was trying to delay some content so I could, play on live and do my whole challenge of getting the Arceus with that gimmick. But it didn't work out as well because I just didn't, I didn't have the decks ready to do it, since the deck I was going to play was, essentially banned for all intents and purposes. So, it's where we're at. I go ahead and attach a Jet Energy to my Walking Wake here, so even though it's already in the active, and the Jet Energy does have some application later, especially with no, with no Latias in play, I do want the 2 Grass Energies in my hand, because my hand is kind of doing nothing currently, and so I really want the option to, get 2 more additional cards next turn, and even just play more energies in play, because there's a small possibility that Ogerpon will attack and take a knockout with it, so... Yeah, it is what it is. They're also going to go ahead and Prime Catcher my Brute Bonnet, which is possibly the worst case scenario here. And I have the option to prevent this. I greedily grab my Fezandipiti using it as a crutch. But I was thinking about grabbing Latias just in case. But in my head is like, I can just retreat with everything pretty cheaply already. So I really don't need it. So I grabbed the Fez just to have the backup plan in case they were able to play really aggressive against me. And now I regret it, because now my Brute Bonnet's stuck in the active. We did make them burn their Prime Catcher at least, because they had to research, but it's still not super fantastic. But we don't see a Fire Energy in play, which is, at least my one saving grace currently, and they popped away a Super Rod, so that's neat. We're going to go ahead and get yet another energy off the card draw here, and then yet another one off the Teal Dance. It's like, oh my god. I'm also going to go ahead and poison the active, just to Actually, I don't know why I do this. I don't think this is a particularly good play, because all kind of, well, I guess inconsequential. I thought I was going to be taking damage, but, it's not going to matter much, because if I am able to get the KO with the Walking Wake, it's going to one-shot it anyways, unless they attach some wacko card to it. I don't even know what they can attach to make it do less damage, but yeah, it's just, inconsequential, I guess. I guess it never mattered. And what is going to matter is my opponent played double Energy Switch and gave the second Regidrago essentially ready next turn. All I need is the Fire Energy to go off, but we are still not in a great spot. And they have Dragon Bolt ready, which means they're going to put damage across my entire field and really set me back here. So I'm really going to need some firepower here to come up. Thankfully, the Ido does help me out quite a bit, because my hand wasn't really getting me into most places. So... even though I lost the 2 cards for the Teal Dance, 1, I can get this back in the Earthen Vessel, and 2, I'll have other things to do. Also, I was wrong. They didn't have the Drag Bolt in the discard until then, which is why they had an Iono. Perhaps they were considering not using Iono because I didn't have a whole lot in my hand to show for it, but if they needed to pull out an attacker that wasn't Kieran. And they were going to do the smart, responsible Dragothane and spread the damage everywhere like that. I have no other comments for my sequencing here. I think putting the white into the active is fine because I'm pretty much always telling myself, "Hey, I need to get the KO with the Walking Wake this turn, and if I don't, I just click concede." So that's the whole reason I do that. Is discarding the water energy the best possible play? I think that one's still up for debate. I think I should have probably kept it and toss away like the Lisias or the second Arven or whatever. But we could fix our mistakes by just grabbing an Earthen Vessel with the Arven instead, and this will allow us to energy switch off one of these energies onto the Wake and keep going. I do have the Latias in my hand too, which is also like not bad. It will just allow me to freely pivot into a Walking Wake next turn if I need to. But there's one big concern. It's that I don't have a second Walking Wake in play. I do finally have the Area 0, so I can actually get more bench space next turn. Granted, they don't Iono me to the bottom, but it's just not a super fantastic position for me. But my opponent has already burned through a lot of resources, and they might have to burn through a couple more to actually keep the game stay going. But it's still really sketchy. I do think if I end up taking out this Regidrago, though, they might be cast out of resources because they have already burned a Super on and they just played another research there. So they're really, really in the trenches when it comes to like what they have left. And they're going to Earthen Vessel and take out even more if that was even possible. Thankfully, though, they can't do anything about that. And they're just going to go ahead and rip the V-Storm. I have no clue why they do this. Were they really like that down bad? My opponent ends up, forfeiting the whole game here because they'll even grab Super on. They grab like superior energy retrieval, and I'm just like, okay, you can do whatever you want, buddy. What a game to end it out on is that the players alive are still really bad, and you can ladder using literally anything. With that said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys enjoyed the wonky montage in the beginning. It's very unique to do that, I suppose. And yeah, I mean, I got nothing else to say. I'm tired. I need sleep. You guys have a good night.